Bleach episode 18 continues where we had left off from last week's episode, which was a few pages into chapter 560, with the arrival of Kensei and Rose, who end up protecting Hisagi, Ikkaku, and Yumichika from the very obnoxious Sternritter Mask D Masculine. With the majority of episode 18 rages at ringside, focusing on the fight against Mask, the anime staff do have some time to include all new scenes which are devoted to the Shinigami Research and Development Unit analyzing the battlefield, with Shunsui getting a huge shout out by fulfilling his responsibility as the new head captain despite some negative remarks by Mayuri, who questions his ability as a leader. Additionally, we were shown Rukia taking Kensei and Rose to Isane, as well as a fascinating post-credit scene which involves Yuhabak reacting to the defeat of Mask, which is followed up by an exchange between Hashwad and Uryu, which is taken from chapter 565, but it has all new context and some mystery added to it, as we get a sense that Kubo and the anime staff are still concealing Uryu's true intentions from us. We know that this detail is carried forward from episode 1 of Core 2, where Hashwald's conversation with his aide from chapter 554 was cut from the anime. Now in the manga, this is literally really early glimpses of Hashwald not trusting Uryu, which the anime is purposefully altering, and hopefully these changes pay off in Core 3 and Core 4. In addition to all of this, we also have Renji's battle against Mask, and it's really streamlined within the anime in comparison to the manga. So you definitely don't want to miss my comparison for this week's episode of Bleach, and as always, I'm going to refrain from talking about any scenes which are one-to-one adapted from the manga, and I'm going to solely focus on what has been cut, changed, and added to the anime. So there's a lot to dive into, so without further delay, here is my manga versus anime comparison for episode 18 of the Bleach 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. Before the intro song, we have an anime exclusive scene which nicely updates us on the progress of the battle. I really love these additions because once again, scenes like this serve to add to the scale of the battle presently unfolding. It helps us to be intimately familiar with all of the different parties involved and giving them more of a role than what they had within the manga. And in general, you're never going to hear me complaining about seeing more Uruhara and Mayuri interactions. So the anime only scene begins by cutting to Mayuri's lab, where Uruhara is present with Mayuri and several other members of Squad 12 who discuss some statistics regarding how the Shinigami are currently faring against the Quincy. They must be running some advanced models of probability, as they estimate that after the Serite was replaced by the Quincy City, they have a 42% chance of survival, taking into account all of the currently wounded. Additionally, they estimate that the effectiveness of their current strategy is at 30%. The sentiment shared by Akon is a mixture of shock and frustration, as he wonders how the Quincy were able to do so much in such a short amount of time. They have effectively taken advantage of the confusion following the Shinigami being robbed of their familiar surroundings, after the shadow was cast over the Serite, replacing the entire landscape of the battlefield with one that the Shinigami know nothing about. This was also highlighted in earlier episodes when Hisagi had admitted to Ikkaku and Yumichika that he had gotten lost wandering the Quincy City, looking for enemies. Urahara adds to Akon's comments by saying that the Quincy had taken advantage of the chain of command being disrupted following the chaos and confusion caused by the change of the landscape. Akon asks about the physical condition of the wounded, as we are updated on the status of Soifon, Omaida, Hitsugaya, and Rangiku. Additionally, we learn that the captain of Squad 11, Kenpachi Zaraki, is not responding, but Akon tells them to leave Squad 11 alone, which honestly is such an amazingly well nuanced line that they have added to the anime. Squad 11 are the fighting force of the Shinigami, and this line by Akon solidifies that they don't need to really give them any advice on how to do their job. Nobody else can cut down their opponents like Kenpachi can. Akon continues to ask about the other Shinigami, learning that Rose and Kensei are in good condition and they are responding to a situation at the moment. Uruhara doesn't sound too positive, as he states that at this rate, the Shinigami who have survived so far will be hunted down by the Quincy. Mayuri then passes his own judgment over the situation, stating that the Shinigami fighting need to try everything on their own. He will be doing exactly the same. He recommends for them to use their own judgment and to try everything on their own accord, because if they were acting on their own judgment, then they wouldn't have time to be getting shaken up by the Quincy's tactics. Shunsui then calls them, as we properly see him take up a leadership role here, but this isn't before Mayuri has an opportunity to take a jab at him. He tells him that while he was sipping tea with Hashward, the effectiveness of their current strategy has dropped to 30%. Shunsui jokes that he had run out of tea and the opponent was about to sip on his blood, but Mayuri has little sympathy for him, stating that as long as he is alive, then he should be able to get back to work. This is Mayuri underestimating the newly appointed head captain as he continues to question if he can manage the subordinates currently on the battlefield. Shunsui sarcastically thanks him for his assistance as he speaks to Mayuri about an updated version of a map that's currently being sent to all of the Shinigami on the battlefield. We see them all checking their devices as Shunsui speaks to the Shinigami about how the map is being updated as the enemy continues to make their move, stating that the red marks are the locations of the other Shinigami on the battlefield, and he orders them to meet up with the closest seated officer to them regardless of their division, and they've been ordered to follow any instructions that they receive from their superior ranking Shinigami. He encourages the Shinigami not to be disheartened by the tactics of the enemy, who are trying to isolate them and to take them out one by one. Shunsui's orders here intend to improve the morale amongst the Shinigami and to get them to snap out of their confusion and to work together. He ends the call amazingly by telling them to get back on their feet and to continue fighting. This literally is amazing. He didn't entertain Mayuri's taunts, and the anime through this additional scene gave Shunsui some much needed screen time, allowing us to see him fulfill his duty as a head captain. Shunsui has a gap of absence in the manga during this portion of the story, with his encounter with Hashward ending in chapter 559, and we don't really see him again until chapter 604, so I think that it was necessary to include this exclusive scene into the anime, and I have to commend Kubo and the anime staff for this addition. So after the introductory scene, we cut to the opening song as the episode then begins where we had left off with material from chapter 560. The episode begins with Kensei activating his Bankai Tekken Tachikaze. After Kensei punches the Sternritter in the stomach, some inner monologue from James reacting is cut from the anime. In the manga, he says that he cannot believe that Mister is on his knees after one hit. After Mask recovers and attacks Kensei and Rose, a line of dialogue is cut in the anime at the end of chapter 560, and it's after Mask introduces himself as Sternritter S. In the manga, he also says that the cheers are my source of power. Chapter 561 is very faithfully adapted into episode 18 with little to no overall changes between the manga chapter in comparison to the anime episode, with the arrival of Renji at the end of the chapter concluding the first half of the episode, which takes us into the mid-card. When Mask calls James to heal his ears, a few manga panels are cut from the anime. The cut material is inconsequential lines from James asking if Mister had called him, and then we see Renji reacting to what's going on, wondering how on earth James is still alive while he has literally been cut in two. In the manga, Mask asking James for cheers and stating that he likes to be cheered on by his fans is cut from the anime. The anime overall here skips half a page of manga material, and it just cuts to James saying "cheer up superstar" as he begins to heal his eardrums. After Mask's eardrums are healed, about 7 pages of manga content is cut from the anime, and I'll go over the contents of these 7 pages of removed material here. In the manga, after Mask gloats to Renji about having his ears healed, Renji states that he is one creepy dude. The Sternritter then states that he had heard the insult and it is unforgivable. He charges towards him with a star rocket headbutt, but Renji strikes him down with his elbow as he crashes into the ground. Mask then gets back up stating that he had dodged his attack and even landed an elbow, as it appears as though Renji is lucky. He then says that Renji has made one mistake because his attack just now has angered him. He then draws his attention to the star crest that has formed on his fist, and it appears when he is angry. He explains that the crest is a sign that he has chosen to defeat evil. He then unleashes his attack Murder Punch. He explains that this punch is 10 times more powerful with the star crest, for it is the Iron Hammer of Justice, telling him to quietly die as his brains are beaten out by the power of justice. Now once again, when the smoke clears, we see Renji having intercepted his fist, saying to him what's wrong. Is he struggling to kill a Shinigami with a murder punch? Mask is then further angered by this, asking him if he thinks that it is acceptable for a villain to catch the fist of a hero. He then repeatedly throws fists of justice towards Renji, but he evades the attacks and instead cuts up James into pieces. In the manga, Mask asks how he was cut up, as Renji explains while he was busy throwing his punches, he had gone ahead and taken care of James. Now this is everything that the anime has cut, and as a result, in the anime, James isn't cut into pieces. Instead, he is cut cleanly by a single slash from Renji. After Renji cuts James and says that this should stop Mask from coming back to life, we cut to an anime exclusive scene of Rukia flying to get help for Kensei and Rose. She realizes that she needs to hurry because both of their spiritual pressures are getting weaker. However, she wonders how she is going to find refuge from the Quincy in order to help them. Thankfully, she senses the Reiatsu of someone who can help nearby. We cut to the inside of the ruins of a building where Isane and some Squad 4 members have set up a temporary medical facility healing the wounds of the injured. Rukia tells Isane that Rose and Kensei are in critical condition. They need immediate immediate treatment. While brief, this anime exclusive scene once again shows us what is going on across the different areas of this battlefield. It makes the situation seem way more believable in the anime. The manga has a habit of usually sticking to a singular point and it moves on to other areas after a battle is resolved, but the anime is amazingly making these additions and really fleshing out aspects of the second Quincy invasion which build upon the source material. Overall, it gives anime-only viewers a richer experience of the Bleach story. Manga readers are also having a fresh experience of the 1000 Year Blood War arc thanks to the alterations that Kubo is making. And one such change that Kubo has made to the story is in the post-credit scene of this week's episode, which I'll talk about later on. Following Rukia's brief anime-only scene, we cut back to Renji vs Mask, where he has just cut him across his body, which occurs right at the end of chapter 562. After Mask activates his star power-up form, an entire page from chapter 563 is cut from the anime. It is following Renji asking why does his mask also change when he powers up. Mask states that he remembers Renji, saying that he was the one that he had drop-kicked during the first Quincy invasion, explaining that superstars don't remember every enemy that they have defeated, so he had forgotten until now who Renji was. Renji, on the other hand, is surprised that he has only now realized who he has been fighting. Mask says that he has no idea how Renji was able to get so strong in such a short amount of time, but he should feel proud that he is about to bear witness to his true power. The anime cuts out all of this and instead has Mask charge towards Renji after he powers up. Renji's new Bankai is animated really well within the anime as the lighting becomes really dark and it's overcast by this red tone, as we see the fingers of the baboon side of his Bankai crack into place and it looks really creepy, and it overall adds to this whole hero and villain dynamic that's going on during Renji's battle against Mask. Now, when we get the flashback of Renji recalling Ichibei telling him the real name of his Bankai, it is pretty much adapted one-to-one from the manga, and the anime retains important details from the manga, like the information that Ichibei had revealed that he holds the name Manako Osho, which was given to him by the Soul King, and it means the one who speaks the true name. The episode then wraps up with Renji unleashing his Zaga Teppo ability, which ends up defeating Mask before we cut to the end credits. But as usual, we have a post-credit scene this week, and it isn't involving Ichigo this time. The first 4 pages of chapter 565 are not included within this anime episode. These pages were adapted into the first scene of Core 2 at the start of episode 14, where we saw the birth of Yhwach in that stunning visual sequence. Now, the anime scene did not really explain what was going on, but that intro segment in the manga was fully narrated. The post-credit scene includes material from chapter 565, but the context of the conversation and the setting is entirely different. Some deliberate alterations were made here in order to give Uryu more of a nuanced role within the story, as Hashward isn't as hostile towards him in the anime in comparison to his role within the manga. So the post-credit scene begins with Yhwach reacting to the death of James, stating that he did well as he orders him to come back home to the origin of his powers, as the theme of this post-credit scene is centered around establishing Yhwach as the father of all Quincy, and how once the Sternritter are killed, their power returns to Yhwach and it empowers him. Fragments of Mask transform into Reishi and they are absorbed into Yhwach's body. In the manga, you'll note that Uryu isn't with Yhwach here, but in the anime he is right next to him and he is surprised to see what is going on, as a dark shadow then covers the Quincy leader's body and he ends up disappearing, as the shadow then creeps across the floor and it appears to hit into an invisible wall where Hashward suddenly appears from out of nowhere. The shadow then fires past Hashward, indicating that Yhwach has left something behind with him while he takes his leave to rest. Uryu is surprised to see Hashward, who explains to him that His Majesty Yhwach is currently asleep. While sleeping, he returns to being the father of Quincy's in order to save his strength. While he is asleep, nothing should interrupt him. Uryu asks why he is here. He explains that Yhwach and himself are connected, but he then corrects himself, stating that Yhwach is actually connected to all of the Quincy, but he says that Uryu must already know about this, to which he agrees. Now Hashward speaks about information that Uryu won't know about, asking if he knows why Yhwach has such immense power, as well as what the nature of Yhwach is. He states that he will not find the answers to these questions within even his grandfather Soken Ishida's research documents. Hashward ends the conversation by supposing that he should let Uryu know about Yhwach, considering he is Yhwach's successor. So some of this exchange between Hashward and Uryu is taken from pages 5 to 10 of chapter 565. However, the manga doesn't include the scene of Yhwach transforming into a shadow and Hashward appearing. Instead, in the manga, Uryu is seen walking to Yhwach's chambers, and some dialogue lines end up being cut from the anime, like Hashward asking him abruptly what is it that he he wants. He is very impatient with Uryu in the manga, ordering him to cut to the chase and to state his purpose for wanting to see Yhwach. Uryu, in another panel that's cut from the anime, says that it is none of his business. He doesn't need to explain to him why he needs to see Yhwach, noting that Hashward seems different from the daytime. So the uncomfortability is removed from their conversation here, as the anime continues to highlight Hashward as feeling neutral towards Uryu, in comparison to the manga, where his doubts about him are well established at this point in the story. It is evident that Kubo is using Core 2 to set up some plot lines which will be explored deeper into Core 3 and 4. Uryu's traitor storyline is going to be further expanded upon, and is going to be given a bit more believability in the anime, and hopefully it culminates into an epic showdown against Ichigo, which we didn't get to see within the manga. I love how the anime dials back Hashwald's out of character hostility. We had assumed up until now that he was being impatient and ratty here because he was in possession of Yhwach's power, and this was affecting or influencing his mood. As Uryu had stated in the manga, he notes that he seems to be awfully different from the daytime, but the anime cuts this line, meaning that Hashward is still calm and composed, even while looking after Yhwach's power while he is asleep. I do wonder how the anime is going to continue with this exchange in episode 19, because it is in chapter 565 where Hashward literally confronts Uryu, stating that he has only joined the Sternritter in order to avenge the death of his mother. I never really liked how soon this was done in the manga, and it just seems rushed, so we can expect these lines to be cut and possibly included later on in like Core 3 or 4, I suppose. The next logical step is for Hashward to explain the nature of Yhwach's powers and how they work to Uryu, which also occurs in chapter 565. So all of these scenes may well be included in the next episode, but with Hashwald's hostility and feelings of suspiciousness removed, I guess. Episode 18 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime was really intense, and there were several changes made in comparison to the manga, with the additions made for Shunsui's scene at the beginning of the episode, Isane helping the Shinigami in the middle of the episode, and the reworked material from chapter 565 during the post-credit scene. Now, there was also some material that was skipped over in episode 17 from chapter 559, and it involves BG9 and Kangdu's judgment scene, which I had assumed would be adapted into this week's episode. However, once again, we didn't end up seeing it in episode 18. I wonder if they have actually skipped over this scene, which effectively brings an end to Kangdu and BG9's character while also showcasing Hashwald's power the balance. This was quite a pivotal moment in the manga, so I wonder if the anime will be giving these two Sternritters a second chance. It will be interesting to see what happens as the anime continues, so now I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What were your thoughts on how the anime had handled the fights against Mask? Did you enjoy the Bankai reveals of Kensei and Rose, and not to forget the all-new incredible Bankai of Renji? What do you think about the post-credit scene and how the anime is reworking manga material? And lastly, what are your thoughts about the streamlining of Renji's battle against Mask? I look forward to reading all of your comments, and I cannot wait to see you next week for my breakdown and analysis of episode 18 of the all-new Bleach anime.
If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.